Why, hello there! Have you just started your horseback riding journey? If so, today I'm going over the top 10 most common mistakes that beginner horseback riders make and how to avoid them so that you and your horse can have a better ride. So let's go ahead and get into it. Saddle up. All right, so mistake number one that beginner horseback riders make when first learning is they pinch with their knees. Now, it's an entirely reasonable instinct to think that when you grip with your knees, that's going to make you more secure because you feel like you're holding on. Oh, she's like, why'd you pinch me, Mom? Why'd you pinch me? But that, as you can see, that pitches you out of the saddle and makes you lean forward. And then also gives your horse mixed signals when you pinch with your knees. So you're gonna wanna relax your leg, think about wrapping your legs around your horse, because your horse is shaped a little bit like a barrel, Saoirse even more so, a little round, and think about wrapping your leg so that you're not pinching with your knees. That way you're not throwing your seat off, you're not sending mixed signals to your horse, and you're confidently staying in the saddle. Beginner mistake number two, holding the reins too tightly with your hands. So again, it kind of makes sense when you're first learning that if you clutch the reins really tight with your hands that you're gonna be, in theory, more safe, but it does pull on the bridle. Whether you have a bit in your horse's mouth or you're using a side pull like I've got on Saoirse here, you're going to be pulling on your horse's face. It's gonna make you put your shoulders up a little bit and crouch a little forward. All these things, they happen secondarily to clutching the reins really tightly. What you're going to want to do is gently roll your shoulders back a little bit and imagine you've got a little baby bird or a little egg in your hand and you want to keep it safe so it doesn't fall out of your hand, but you don't want to crush it either. So that's kind of what you're going to want to do with your reins, holding your reins like so. So they're not like bunched up and tight, and I'm not going to be sending signals to my horse that I'm anxious, that I'm uptight, that I'm not secure. Remember, horses rely on you to be the leader. If they don't feel safe in your hands, they're probably going to be out of your hands and something dangerous could happen. So a nice little relaxed grip of the reins, roll your shoulders back, sit back, and just have a nice gentle contact with your horse. Now, something I found that helps a lot with this, if you feel like anxious and you're pinching with your knees, pinching with your hands, is to simply take some deep breaths, like, and you just do that 2 or 3 times, and it does actually slow your heart rate down. And horses are very keen and they pick up on all these cues. Mistake number 3 is slouching forward and looking down. Now, this happens usually because the beginner rider, they can be a little bit nervous. They're looking at the ground, like how high they are, how fast their horse is moving. But what you're gonna wanna do is look where you're going. So rolling your shoulders back, sitting up straight. If you imagine a straight line from your helmet to your shoulder to your hip to your heel, you want that as straight as possible. So you're most likely going to be finding yourself having to sit back a little bit for this because we go into fetal position when we're looking down, and that throws our horse off balance. Your head is a pretty heavy object. So look where you want to go, sit up straight, and have your crotch ever so slightly lifted off your saddle. That way you don't accidentally lean forward and look down. Common mistake number 4 is relying too heavily on reins for controlling your horse. So think of your reins as a backup aid for your horse. If you rely mostly or even entirely on the reins to get your horse about and steer them, you're going to get really stiff turns. It's going to be really hard on your horse's head and neck. So you're going to actually want to use your seat, which is this bottom part of your torso, all the way down to your seat bones and hip and the top part of your leg here. That's all considered your seat. Steer using your seat and your legs. So if you're turning to the left, you would apply some pressure with your outside leg, which for me would be my right leg, and I would shift my weight ever so slightly toward the left. And then you use the reins as fine tuning because you don't want to be too heavy-handed. That's uncomfortable for the horse, no matter the bridle. Good girl. And you can do that for stopping too, using your seat, so leaning back, and then using your reins as backup aid. So being heavy-handed, super easy to do. Good news is pretty easy to fix as well. You just got to be more mindful that you are steering with the center of your body and not your hands, because this is a horse, not a car. Mistake number 5 is not keeping your heels down. Now, a lot of riders, when they're first starting out, like I said earlier, fetal position is kind of like the natural inclination. But if you notice, when I go into fetal position, my legs come up and I start to lose my stirrup because they're hanging on just my toes there. And that puts you off balance because you're using your stirrups for balance, and you have to be securely and rightly in your stirrups in order for that to happen. Put the weight down your leg and let them really sink into your heels for a nice balanced seat. Mistake number 6 is kicking to go and yanking to stop. So we want to be gentle with our horses because they are sensitive creatures and they can feel pain and discomfort just like you and me. So you want to use gentle pressure to get them to go forward. Good girl. So gentle pressure to get them to go forward. And if you want them to go faster, you just use a little bit more pressure. And you can do voice cues too. Okay. Trot. Good girl. You can stay there. I'm going to circle back. Good girl. And then to get them to stop, here we are walking. Oh, you want to step over your jumps, girly? Might be a little high for you to step over. Watch how I stop. It's just a deep breath, sitting back, and a gentle little half halt on the reins. Now, for those of you who don't know what a half halt is, it's basically, instead of pulling your reins back to get them to stop, you just close your fingers around the reins and give a little like ooh, ooh, like that. So, and it can be pretty subtle too. That was an exaggerated half halt, just so you know what I'm doing with the reins. But in reality, it's going to be like a little doo, doo, like very, very subtle that a lot of people observing wouldn't be able to see. So leaning back, doing a nice breath out, saying like ho, and a gentle little half halt. And that usually gets you into a downward transition, whether that's canter to trot or trot to walk or walk to stop. Very easy to yank and kick, but like I said, horses are very sensitive creatures. You use the lightest amount of pressure necessary to get them to go and to stop. Number 7 is not giving the horse a release or reward when they give you the correct response. So it's easy to, for example, if you wanted to stop and you pull back on the reins, and when the horse stops, some people, especially when they're first starting out riding, they'll find themselves still pulling back on the reins or still sitting back. With horses, they learn from positive reinforcement, so either giving them a treat at the correct response, or negative reinforcement, removing something like pressure. Something you can relate it to in the human world is when you're driving your vehicle and your seatbelt alarm goes off and it keeps beeping and beeping and being annoying until you click your seatbelt in. That's an example of negative pressure. So super important with horses that you do give them a release. When you ask them to go faster and they do, you release that pressure immediately as soon as they give you the correct response. Don't keep kicking, don't keep applying pressure, don't keep pulling. It's just gonna confuse your horse because almost every single horse learns by negative pressure and positive. And that doesn't have to be treats. It can be little like scratches, like good girl, when they do the right thing. It can be like asking them to back up and then you stop and give them a little break. It's not just treats. Mistake number 8, and if you commit this mistake, you should be banned from horse riding forever. No, I'm just kidding. But in all honesty, if you skip the warm-up or skip the cool down, this is a super common mistake, especially if you're taking riding lessons before you actually own a horse. Sometimes you're just expected to go into the arena and start your lesson, but I would always advocate for the horse and say like, oh, you know, can I come like 10 minutes early or stay 10 minutes? I'll be out of the way. I'll be on the other side of the arena so that you can conduct your other lessons. You should definitely warm up your horse, especially if they're older, if it's particularly cold, or if it's hot out. You don't want to just throw them in the deep end, so to speak. Make sure that you're walking them around, trotting them in little circles, figure eights, whatever your routine is. But for the love of God, do not just get on your horse and expect them to trot and canter and jump. And the same thing on the other side of your riding, give them a nice cool down. So walking them around the arena for 5 to 10 minutes so that they're not soaking wet and hot and sweaty. And make sure you have a cooler when appropriate. This is a moisture wicking fleece that you put over your horse, and it's like microfiber cloths that you and I would use for drying dishes. It wicks the moisture away so that your horse isn't sopping wet. Mistake number 9 is when riders get off and on very carelessly. So you don't want to plop in the saddle, and you don't want to just quickly grab up your reins or anything like that. You want to get on nice and gently and dismount as gently too, because at the end of your lesson you could be anxious or you just want to get out of there or get your horse cooled down. You have other things to do, whatever the case is. Make sure you dismount with grace, because a lot of accidents do happen with a sloppy dismount. So let your reins go, not completely. You want to have a little control of your horse just in case something happens. But you don't want them to be like super tight either, because when you get off, you're going to be pulling on your horse. So you just loosen it a little bit, drop your stirrups like so, nice and gentle, lean forward and nice and slow. Make sure you don't kick your horse and slide off like so. And the reason you don't keep your foot in the stirrup when you're getting down, I have seen this before, and the person, they leaned forward, they kept this foot in the stirrup, and then the horse started to walk off, because a lot of times lesson horses, they're like, oh, I know that this means the lesson's over, so I'm going to start to walk off toward my pasture, walk off toward my water bucket, whatever the case is. Their foot was stuck and their foot was in the stirrup. Luckily, it wasn't a disaster, but they were doing a whole lot of like hopping, trying to like, you know, get the horse to stop. So don't do that. The 10th most common riding mistake beginner riders make when starting out. This might sound a little cheesy, but honestly, being too harsh and self-critical. You have to remember, even the best riders, the ones on TV riding in the Olympics, they all started out as beginners, every single last one of them. So just give yourself some grace and don't be too hard on yourself. Give yourself and your horse a lot of patience, a lot of leeway, and that way you'll stick with the sport and you'll actually enjoy yourself. It's easy to get caught up in all the things you're doing wrong, or there's so much to know and get overwhelmed, but just take deep breaths and remember, we've all been there. Thank you so much for watching today's video. If you liked it, go ahead and let me know. And in the comments, tell me, what was your biggest hurdle when first getting into horseback riding? What did you really struggle with? I'd love to know. I'll see you next time. Bye.